The Boarding School and Cushman Project, the Puyallup Tribal Language Program. This video was put together by the Puyallup Tribal Language Program to bring awareness to events that transpired on the Puyallup Tribal Reservation. This video is intended to educate our community about the real history that occurred on this land to our people. You will find our history of factual events is much different than the history shared with the general public. We are sharing our story to add to your understanding of our people, coming from our own voices.
O Puyallup txʷəls a tis schalatsu go gwalachtwa tis wilsu yaf tis siaya yaf tis txʷəls o hoyudas tis Cushman chalalt is o shabab field a tis gwal pasted.
Interview with Rhoda Hayward, SALISH, the minimization of language and culture through boarding schools. Written by Amber Hayward. Lashutsi translation by Zalmai Aswili Zahir. Amber Hayward seeds dot. Spoyalapabs chud yaftis salish. Olala olab chud atis Cushman. Alti tudzayus alti duflala olubadi o kwashid chud ti siatsub atis Cushman chud alach dufaf tu och tsi tudkaya twa Cushman. Tudkaya ti tsaf oyayus alta Cushman. O yatsub tub si tudkaya ati tu ochs twa Cushman hoy chada o yatsub tubutlid atiso yatsubs. O wali'i si tudkaya alta sali achi yafti salats ata slokwab ata pach'aab alta parats yafti khos bakwachi zaladub yafti slifwachi. O wali'i si tudkaya alta Montana alti swa tuftud ata flathead atsil talbuf. Salish atsil talbuf tsi'ish. Lucille Pablo DUCHARME si tuscois. Salish atsil talbuf tsi'ish. Altil skoyaligwads. Anastasia Pablo si tu kayats. Salish atsil talbuf tsi'ish. Alexander Pablo Titu Tsapas, Klau Basilish Atsil Talbuf Tiish. Frank Wilbur DUCHARME Titu Bads, Salish Atsil Talbuf Tiish. Altis Badaligwads, Emerance Finley Titu Kayats, Salish Atsil Talbuf Tiish. Frank DUCHARME Sr. Titus Tsapas, Klauba Salish Atsil Talbuf Tiish. Tub Sokwa Tsi Tudkaya, Frank DUCHARME Titus Stas. Ilt Eso Ti Sokwas, Ata Sali Aladf. O Wali'i Hulgwa Gwal O Klach Altiswa Tuftud. Alta Flathead. Tu Sasasel Hulgwa Alta Polson, Montana. Alti tu Khulalar Si Tudkaya. Tu Chachash Gwal tu Sasel Altis Flathead Reservation Altis, Montana. Ochtsub a BIA agent Si Tudkaya Yav Si Tu Pos. Tu qabai at sil tu pos. Hoy go och tub halgwa twa Cushman. Altis la ochs halgwa o gwa klalad alti tapanish go tu slugs halgwa sadacho chachash. Tu a tis lali wiotsu to all buck dufchad swa twiftwood to all Alaska, yufti Washitub, yufti Idaho, yufti Montana, yufti Oregon. Tu chab tis lali wiotsu toch huikwaso chab at si tud kaya. Tu klulotub at tis wiotsu tis yelabs. Gwo tu klu hoi. Huikwa so wele halgwa. Ho tu hoi halgwa. Stab ti so sutubs halgwa. O wele kwechad. O ched kwadaf o och. O tsut. O tsut halgwa. O kotab ata tok o bali. Tochaf. Sut sil tud kaya. Huikwa sas chals. Gwafwit gwas afs chalabs. Hwaf gwaso kotabs. Hwit quiso quichitabs. Ho o buck tube atil cod liver chwas buck slachel. Buck slachel gwo tu klut ad sutaf hogwa. Gwo klu labdub at sil nurses atil qayok halgwa. Gwo klu eqwadib halgwa. Gwo klu togotab halgwa atil sas kwalabats. Altil Cushman. Gwo atil lalit gwas ward. Atil bos all. Sali twal til stobobsh. Gwo sali twal til slasladite. To A til Ward A, yuf T Ward B, yuf T Ward C, yuf T Ward D. Abil gwachas chafwasasil aquidach A alt. Toch abil cho chafgwachechas chafwasasil aquibadach A alt. Tu sasil si tudkaya alta Ward D. Tu sasil twadach o zaladub. Tu sasil halgwa alta hek dach a adi. Gwal tu tadad tis Pete, al tis sali skadi. Tu sasil tis ilchachash. Du klapalt. Gwal tu sasil tis islok. Du shakalt. Tu a tis wards al tis shakabats, a tis squaquatach, gwala tu a tis all, alta hklap. Tu a tis auditorium, yuf ti occupational therapy, all, yuf tis squadit sut alt, yuf tis acid alt. Slufa sel ti klus och schalgwa twalta acid alt gwo klu acid buck slachel. Altis occupational therapy all gwo tu hoyachi bid halgwa. Klu och halgwa twaltis kwadit sut alt buck ha. Buck slachel klu kas halgwa gwo tsak disab, gwo tsagwat suit, gwo tsakade, o la labtub halgwa at sil nurse. Hoi o tudsut halgwa twal cod liver chas. O lacheladab halgwa, gwo o bulk halgwa twal tis ward, gwo o cha'a, o gwadil. Hoi gwa chatsbid halgwa, bib chagwa halgwa kak. O chakachab halgwa atil e qosid, da fwit gwa slab tagwals halgwa. Abilaf gwa chayab til wiotsu, gwa kagwa tub at sil nurse. Hoi tuch a halgwa twatis o acids. Tilaf o tudzalaf halgwa Alaf tisas lachelo. Tu ochalgwa totil chalaut toch fwaf gwas hak gwa fwaf gwas lachdub at si tudkaya tiso lahaidufs. Dutch af atil chacha gwa glu ochalgwa twa occupational therapy gwa glu ochalgwa twa til kwaditsut alt alta pad chacha. Alti Dutch ot zaladub tut ok si tut kaya yav si pos twa Montana. Alti so tlachils halgwa chak quigwas bulks twa Cushman guati o glalab halgwa atil alalos atil Cushman. Huit la alalos atil shads. O ala los tab halgwa atil Cushman. O bulk bagwich tis yaya atu Rhoda twa washatab alta parats yapti chos zaladub yapti spo sachi yapti Dutch o guati huitlas yayus alta Montana. Huitwas ait dub atil tuts zapas. Hai o safoboch ocht tis yaya al til tabakos twa yakama gwa o yayus atahaps. Tu slasel halgwa al te yakama twa hak patab hoi gwa lagwich halgwa twa zidzalalich gwa tilaf bagwich halgwa twa taswa tuftwad ata Puyallupabj alta SALISH ali. Ad kadub atu Rhoda tis easts to Richard Hayward Sr. alti zidzalalich gula gwich hagwa twalta swa tuftad as Puyallupabj gula achad til padadats badadats hagwa. Babok twalta Cushman chasalt twas yayus altis o lokils gwil bayayus alta Hawthorne Indian chalalt tu yayus bitab as Puyallupabj. La achwatab atu Rhoda til badadats yaf til ebebats yaf til chabeks gwa o slaslis tiso latbuds til Dutch o ak yeks. O huit alich atahas al tiso slasils. Hai o ogos bid tabutlid chad atidzo chalat suit bid si tu Rhoda Hayward. Tu hoyu chad zuf bid ata sluf sloquab atiso atabud atud kaya altil sali achi spakwachi zaladub yapti parats yapti tsoks. O chorchod atiso qalbs ata chalot golo chorchod atil so chorchod chal duf chad.
My name is Rhoda Hayward. Maiden name is DUCHARME. I was born at Ronan, Montana in 1930. I was raised with all my mother, my grandmother, sometimes my dad, and my other grandma was named. My first grandma was Anastasia. She married Alec Paldo. My father, Wilbur DUCHARME. Went to Cushman School for Indians. Then they made it into a hospital. My mother went to the Catholic school, Earthline. All of us at one time or another, went to the Indian school. We were baptized, made our first communion, and then was confirmed Catholic. It was a good school. We learned a lot about how to polish floors, work in the kitchen. I'm not sorry. I certainly not gonna forget my training. My grandmother went to Carlisle. We had pictures of them when they got off the train. They cut the boys' long hair off. Jim Thorpe went there at the same time. He was from Oklahoma. Then I was put in the Earthline. We were like a dormitory. We all slept in a dormitory campus-like setting. Then, later on, me and my aunt went to Cushman. And I was not. Went to school there. Loved the structures. We didn't seem like we were sick at all. Then later on, I got a job at the hospital, for the Indian Hospital. They came from all over Alaska, Navajo, all the tribes went to Cushman, here in Tacoma. It was a good job. Alex, my Grandpa Alex, and his dad spoke Spanish. But Alex was already half in between. You got punished if you tried to speak in native. And you try, some kids were put in isolation. My dad and my grandmother. If they spoke any language at all, they didn't let nobody else hear them. Because they wanted to call mainstream. You gotta be like everybody else. You don't. They didn't bother the French, but then nobody spoke it. It's like a language disappeared. It was French, Spanish, Kootenai, and Salish. All them types were mixed up. It's like a hidden language. If they knew it, you didn't know it. They knew it. Because it was taken out of them. Big enough to speak, talk. There was no more words left. We didn't have the language no more. It was gone. And I'm so glad to see tribes all over our game, their language. And we should have a language. It's very, very wonderful. Here we are, 5 generations, and now our languages come back. I have lived to see my granddaughter and my great-grandson speak and sing and play the drum and dance and have their own school. That is a wonderful blessing. God has been good to me on this earth. I love everybody. I'm so blessed to have my granddaughter and great-grandchildren. We can cook anything we want, say anything we want, make anything. It's a good time when we can do anything we want. I live to see my baby talk the language. I'm very grateful to be here. Amen.
Sujo ches kuku ets. Sujo ojo biti jan. Kolo chapsi grandma hey. Yeah.
My birthday.
Shabizzi Chad, Queen Hamenge, Ayo Aninishnet, 8 to Slee Akui Hat, Kokolali to Slee Akui Hat, Huskwet, the Awajashik, Ishihan, Tachihila.
Queen Hamenge.
txʷəls. Gualapu de Asia de Siaya Chulup. Amber Sterud Hayward Seed Stat. Spoyalapabs Chud. Uyayush Chud Twati Spoyalapabs Altisla La Olubadi Yakti Twosho Tiradi. Good day to you all, my friends and relatives. My name is Amber Sterud Hayward, and I'm a Puyallup Tribal member. I work for the Puyallup Tribe, formerly in the Historic Preservation Department and currently in the Language Program. You just watched Interview with Rhoda Hayward, SALISH Tribe, the minimization of language and culture through boarding schools. In this video, you heard the story of my maternal grandmother, Rhoda Hayward, and her experiences attending Cushman Indian Hospital and Sanatorium. My grandmother was the most important person in my life, and she's the reason I began this project. In the previous video, names were not used to protect the privacy of our tribal elders. While their words were incredibly powerful, you still didn't have a name or face to associate with their stories. However, in this video, we are sharing one person's life experiences. We are using her story as one final reminder that each of these individuals were someone's child, someone's brother or sister, someone's auntie or uncle, someone's parent, someone's grandparent. Each of them were valuable members of their families and communities. Each of them were missed when they were removed from their homes. Each of their lives and their families' lives were forever changed. I remember the first time my grandmother told me she attended Cushman Indian Hospital. I was so confused. I asked her why she came all the way to the Puyallup Reservation from the Flathead Reservation in Montana. She shared her memories with me. So many questions went through my mind. I went home and I told my mother what my grandmother said. My mother was just as shocked as I was, and she said she didn't know that information either. I went back to my office in Historic Preservation and asked my boss and tribal historian, Judy Wright, if I could start working on a boarding school project to do more research and to hear more stories from tribal elders about their experiences. She said absolutely, and she began putting huge piles of documents and photos on my desk to help me with this valuable work. I then went back to my grandmother and asked if I could record her sharing her story about boarding schools and Cushman Hospital. I asked her why she hadn't shared this information with her own children. She said she didn't think it was important enough to share. We continued talking, and she looked at photos of the Cushman school buildings where she lived for a year, and these brought up more memories. She remembered her daily routine, children's names, doctors' and nurses' names. She remembered what it was like going back home to Montana after her one-year stay at the hospital. She then went on to share about her time in the Catholic Indian boarding school in Montana called St. Ignatius. All the children on her reservation attended that boarding school, and she remembered being verbally abused daily. She remembered that her father was brought out to Cushman Boarding School from Montana in his youth. She remembered her mother attending the Indian boarding school in Montana. She remembered her grandmother getting shipped off to Carlisle Indian Boarding School in Pennsylvania. While my grandmother tried to stay relatively positive about the experience, we also talked about the negative intentions behind it all. She told me that what one man means for evil, Creator can turn it around for good. She said the American government meant to harm Indian people and meant to take everything that was dear to us. But as you heard in my grandmother's own words at the very end of the video, the intended results of the U.S. government did not prevail. She got to live to see her family grow up on the Puyallup Reservation. She got to see her grandchildren and great-grandchildren speak their ancestral languages and practice their culture. While my grandmother did her best to turn the harm that was meant for her into good, many others couldn't do the same. After interviewing my grandmother, I advertised far and wide across Indian country looking for elders who attended the boarding schools and hospital on the Puyallup Reservation. I got phone calls, emails, and had in-person visits with many tribal elders who were very willing to share their stories. Because of my understanding of what my grandmother went through, I was able to use that knowledge to carefully interview the elders. Each person I spoke to could very clearly recall their experiences. There were many stories that were similar to my grandmother's. They openly shared with me, gave their consent, and asked that something be done with this information. As you recall from the previous video entitled, Stories from Students, Patients, and Staff, there were stories from these elders that were very hard to hear. Some had horrible memories of their time spent on our reservation. Some had good memories and left with lifelong friends and spouses. No matter what the takeaway was, they all had a story to share that needed to be heard. Please know that the full immersion ucid video and this accompanying video has not been arbitrarily put together. Each word, perspective, story, and each question has been chosen very intentionally. This very Puyallup-centric presentation of history was very deliberately compiled to make you see us as human beings who have a story to share. By centering our story right here in our homelands, you have to connect through us through geography and specific stories shared. We're trying to make it hard for you to disconnect from us. We've all heard the blanket statements regarding the Native American experience in the United States. These blanket statements still allow for you to detach from our stories. We want you to know that these things occurred right here to our people on the Puyallup Reservation in Pierce County, Washington, and the effects of this history still has an impact on our community today. We thank you for your time, and we mostly thank you for considering personally reflecting on this video, the questions, and broadening your awareness for others in your life, because we all want to be seen as human beings, to be acknowledged, and to be accepted. If you'd like to dig deeper or would like more time to process these concepts and values, please see the accompanying document that goes with this section covering Interview with Rhoda Hayward, Salish Tribe, the Minimization of Language and Culture Through Boarding Schools. Hoya, we are finished.